welcome to the real Make It Happen Monday. Today I want to share all the beef with red meat. So despite what you may have heard or read in the popular media, please know the evidence is irrefutable that people that eat the most red meat compared to people that eat the least, they die sooner, they get more heart disease, they get more type 2 diabetes, they get more dementia, they get more cancer, particularly colorectal cancer. And again, on the flip side, when we look at the health status over time of people that eat the least red meat and compare them to people that eat the most, we see that those that eat the least live longer, get less heart disease, less diabetes, less dementia, and less cancers. So you should be wondering, well, what is in red meat that could account for this increased risk of disease and premature death? Well, that's the crux of this video, because there are a whole host of potential villains that red meat houses, and I'm going to go through each one of them with you today. The first one you're likely familiar with, saturated fats. These are unhealthy artery clogging fats. That's very well documented. They elevate your bad LDL, your bad cholesterol, which is a known cause of heart attacks. They also, saturated fats also are pro-inflammatory fats and can decrease neurogenesis. Neurogenesis is the formation of new brain cells, so you don't want that. Second ingredient of concern are, frankly, three categories of carcinogens. The first being found in processed red meats, which are the worst of the worst, and those would be those nitrosamines. Technically, they use nitrates and nitrites to preserve, it's in processed red meat for preservation purposes. And when you take it in, think bacon or ham or bologna or salami, the bacteria in your gut can transform those nitrates into nitrosamines, which are a known cancer-causing compound. The second group of cancer-causing compounds are the PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. And these form when you cook red meat at really high temps, think grilling, broiling, frying. What's happening is the fat is rendered out, and when the fat hits a super hot heat source like an open flame or some coals or your pan, that liberates, that creates those PAHs, which are known carcinogens. And the last group of carcinogens are HCAs, heterocyclic amines, and these, like PAHs, form when you cook red meat at high temperatures. And what's happening here is they're forming in the protein, in the flesh, the protein fibers, the meat fibers themselves, okay? So ingredient of concern number 3 would be excessive iron. You probably know that red meat is a rich source of iron, and if you're deficient in iron, that could be a good thing. However, if you're not deficient and your body's stores of iron are adequate or even high, taking in red meat is not good. Why? Because one thing unique about the iron in red meat is it gets absorbed into the body regardless of the body's needs for iron, okay? And that's in contrast to plant-based sources of iron. If your body is not in need of iron, it's not going to take it in. This is a good thing because excess iron, when it's in the body, is a powerful pro-oxidant. In fact, we think it's the high iron levels in red meat and people that eat a lot of it that likely is the driver of the relationship of heavy red meat eating and development of type 2 diabetes. Ingredient number 4 would be carnitine. You're hearing a lot about carnitine. So carnitine is basically kind of like an amino acid molecule that when you take it in, particularly if you eat red meat regularly, your gut bacteria change that carnitine into something called TMAO, which is a known, very well documented arterial toxin. It interferes with the The normal function of cells that line your arteries causes endothelial cell dysfunction, which is really bad. That's really what is the underlying driver of heart disease, coronary artery disease, okay? Bad for your arteries, TMAO is. Next up, we have environmental toxins. So red meat exists at the apex of the food chain. Think about all of the water and all of the food, grain or whatever that these red meat animals, cows, pigs, and sheep have had to consume to be able to produce the flesh that you're going to ultimately eat if you eat red meat, right? And what happens is environmental contaminants, things like PCBs, dioxins, pesticides, tend to bioconcentrate as you move up in the food chain. The point here is you're going to be exposed to potentially more eating at the apex of the food chain versus like eating at the bottom, like having some green leaves versus a piece of steak. The other thing is antibiotics. Hopefully you know that the majority of antibiotics produced in this country are given to animals. Humans are still taking too many too, but animals really get the lion's share. And we absolutely know this is promoting antibiotic resistance, which is becoming a very serious problem. The other thing is the primary reason they give conventional farming for cows and animals for meat production. The reason they give those antibiotics, the primary reason, is because they know that it makes them gain weight and get fat quick, and that can help them bring the meat to market in a better shape and more quickly. Well, maybe they do that to you. In fact, that's one of our big concerns, is that the antibiotic residues present in red meat are really affecting our microbiome such that we are more likely to gain weight. Let's see. And of course, there's hormone residues, which, it goes without saying, you don't want to be taking hormones. They're super potent molecules. There's inherent risk to taking hormones even that you're getting from other animals. And then pro-inflammatory, this is an important one, pro-inflammatory compounds. There are a whole host of them. I read one recent study that talked about a particular sugar that is in the flesh of red meat that some people have such a reaction to inflammation-wise that it's almost like an allergic reaction, but they don't necessarily manifest as a classic allergic reaction. But when they measure levels of inflammation in their body, they literally go up that high. But the most well-documented pro-inflammatory agent in red meat are advanced glycation end products, AGEs, advanced glycation end products. And these form when you cook red meat at high temperatures, particularly high dry temperatures, think grilling, broiling, frying. And these are known toxic, noxious compounds. They trigger inflammation, and they tend to accumulate in the body. They've been related to cardiovascular disease. There are studies ongoing looking at type 2 diabetes, various cancers, promoting aging. Anyway, so the bottom line is you need to know that it's not just one or two things that we're concerned about in terms of risk of eating red meat. There are a whole host of potential bad players, potential culprits. So I've said many times on my videos, my recommendations are to limit your red meat to 2 servings or less a week. And I always like to quote Walter Willett, who's arguably one of the most quoted and most esteemed and respected of all nutrition experts in the world. He's been at Harvard for pretty much his entire life and career life. And he says this, when it comes to red meat and health, it's kind of like radiation. We just can't say how much, if any, is completely 100% safe. Thank you. One more quick thing. I have a very important announcement. For wellness coordinators that may be watching this video, or organizations, employer groups, my e-courses are going to be on the biggest special of the year. You can license any of the 3, Eat Right for Life, Weigh Less for Life, and the Happiness Plan, any of the 3. If you get a 12-month license, you get 50% off. Your license can begin anytime you want in the year 2020. We encourage you, if you have any interest, please take a look at those programs and take advantage of this, deepest discount of the year. Thank you.